And so I'm really excited for the conversations around this because even though it could have just been a regular schmegular thriller, right? It could have just been, they didn't have to add, it could have been just like a regular friend. It didn't have to have been, he didn't have to be shot by the police. Tyler Perry made a very conscious decision to write this the way it was written because he knew it would start a conversation.
911, what's your emergency?
I need the police. Someone is breaking into my neighbor's house.
My best friend's husband was killed by the people that are sworn to protect and serve.
I know how close you and Rodney were. I'm sorry this happened.
How am I supposed to move on?
I'm not just your friend, I'm your lawyer, and they're gonna pay. I promise you.
Hello, Kat.
Fredlyn, how are you?
I'm well. I'm well. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be talking to you today and getting the chance to interview you. Well, as I think you can know, you or every Gen Z's like friends, sister, because we all grew up watching you on TV. I grew up
Guys,
watching you on
guys
TV.
claimed me real tough.
So my first question for you is, what drew you to the role of playing a high-powered attorney in this big movie, and how did you prepare for such complex character?
Well, I mean, I'm drawn to any and everything that Tyler Perry does, whether he's an actor, producer, director, writer, creator. So I'm always first in line for him, period. So I was so excited when I got the script and when I realized that the character was seeking justice for her friend who lost his life, was an unarmed black man who was shot by the police, and how much I've been affected by that. I mean, I literally did a whole Black Lives Matter campaign back in 2020, and it's been my focus. Equal rights, human rights is really something that I do as a humanitarian, whether it's with refugees, women, with Rotary, and that's something that I spend a good chunk of my life focusing on, but it's something that we just do it kind of privately because the focus is, not everyone necessarily, we don't necessarily always have an audience for those things, and not everyone cares about injustice or inequality, especially when it gets to, you know, Africa or some of the countries that I've worked in. So getting to play a character where that was who she was and what she was about, and also feeling how connected she was to the victim. Like I know what that's like from my own loss of my own brother in that way, that I just felt like it would have been such a special gift from God to be able to play a character that wanted to be on the right side of history and use whatever power she had to make it happen. I know what that feels like to want justice, and I know what it's like to want to play a character and tell stories that give characters that normally don't have a voice. That's kind of been my thing, right? Give a voice to the voiceless, right? So you play character. I always want to play characters that are fighting to win and fighting to find their power or their magic, or empowering other people with it and telling stories of marginalized communities and women. And that's really been my focus since, the show ended, to really put my energy behind that kind of storytelling. And sometimes it happens by like, oh, being in a biracial relationship in a holiday movie because it had never been done before. Sometimes it comes from focusing on, what they do for humanitarian relief in, like, the Anderson, Navy base in freaking Guam. There's always gotta be something that hits my soul that makes me feel like, okay, this is gonna help bring awareness to something that I really think people need to know about. So Steady on the track, steady on the track.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I love hearing that you try to find projects that you can relate to, that I can connect to. And I think that's when you become a better storyteller, when you can when you can have empathy and relate to the situation, you know? So the your character, she did such an amazing job fighting for justice, you know? How do you think playing that character, you already have a past as an activist, which I'd love to hear that. How do you think your character changed your perspective on the justice system and police violence?
I think this character showed me that, you really have to look at all sides of everything and everyone. Um, and that even if you take one step back, you can still get 5 steps forward. But there has to be persistence. So much of my work, I mean, I've been with the UN for, I'd say 13 years now. I've been with Rotary about half of that time, and it takes time and energy and effort and blood, sweat, and a lot of tears and a lot of unseen work and unseen conversations to move the needle forward. But you keep going. You don't, it doesn't matter how long it takes. It doesn't matter how many times you need to keep posting about the same thing and asking for that dollar or that time or that post or that awareness. And doesn't matter how many, you know, repost of GLAD or, whatever organization for human rights I'm working with at the time, you keep going. It's really a lifelong thing. And you fight for it, I mean, Marley is much more exciting than me because she got to do stunts and stuff, but I've maybe I might end up out of, helicopter, or, doing something more actiony in my real life. Most of my stuff is behind the desk or in the field. So she's much cooler than me, but there is what she taught me is that you keep fighting. You keep fighting for what's right,
Oh, I
even
love,
if you last one standing.
yes. And my question is that Tyler Perry has a big Black and minority audiences, you know, and this gonna start a conversation. What conversation do you hope this movie sparks among the audience?
Well, I hope we start looking at what's been happening in the news recently that we also need to be talking about, right? Like sometimes we become desensitized as a society because, oh, it's another killing of an unarmed Black kid and, next kind of thing. And we've unfortunately become desensitized by not having the kind of support, whether it's from the media or leadership, that we deserve and that we're entitled to. And so I'm really excited for the conversations around this because even though it could have just been a regular schmegular thriller, right? It could have just been, they didn't have to add, it could have been just like a regular friend. It didn't have to have been, he didn't have to be shot by the police. Tyler Perry made a very conscious decision to write this the way it was written because he knew it would start a conversation. And I'm excited because I'm looking forward to us being the press for these boys, these girls, and these mothers that want to, shout from the the rooftops about what has happened to their son or their daughter, and we can be a voice for the people. I hope that this is more than just a fun film for people to watch. I hope this does start a dialogue and that we can, maybe every time they do hashtag duplicity, they also do hashtag Trayvon, hashtag George Floyd, hashtag whatever. And it's like, we will keep fighting for justice. And sometimes, listen, sometimes it's going to take a big thriller like this to engage the conversation again, because I do find, at least on the gram or whatever, it just feels like we're desensitized to it because we're used to not feeling supported. We're used to not feeling heard. We're used to our stories not being told. We're used to being overlooked. We're used to being stepped over. And that's not normal. So I'm excited for us to get to our new normal where we can talk about these things. And the fact that you can also be entertained by it is a gift and a very unusual and unique way to tell a story that really only somebody like Tyler Perry could do.
Exactly. And I think that's why people like yourself are important to represent us and help tell these stories. Thank you so much for your time, Kat.